Hello and welcome back to the Sam Beast YouTube channel. My name is David Foxen, and before we start, please do not forget to like and subscribe down below if you are enjoying our content and would like to see more IT asset management content over the next X amount of years or however long we keep doing this for. Now, recently on LinkedIn, I put a post asking about, is there a problem with badge snobbery in ITAM and corporate organisations when it comes to hardware vendors and hardware models? Badge snobbery, it's typically a phrase that you would use like for fashion products, cars, etc., where you only buy a certain type of brand because you like that aesthetic or you like to be seen wearing that particular brand clothes. Or it may even be in the car area where, you only buy a particular brand of car, not naming any names, but there are certainly some of those in the ITAM industry where you'll only buy a BMW or a Mercedes or, a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, or if you're Rory Canavan, Bugattis. Yeah, who knew? But yeah, it's a thing that happens in everyday life, but I really think we're seeing that in the corporate organisation as well, and I really feel like we might be missing out on some really cool tech that would be really beneficial to organisations at a cheaper price. So when I put it out there on LinkedIn, I wanted to know why there is badge snobbery or why organisations only go with certain vendors. Before we dig into some of the awesome messages, emails and stuff I had about this, I do want to obviously flag there are some security issues. There are some just straight up corporate governance guidelines that your organisation is providing, saying that you won't deal with certain vendors from certain countries or territories or for whatever reasons you have. So yeah, we know that. We'll put that to the side and we'll dig into some of the great feedback that we had and some of the things that, as I've been digging around to understand more, why there might be that perceived badge snobbery in hardware asset management and organisations as a whole. So one of the biggest things and the biggest responses that I had quite a few emails about this one, is the fact that it's a trust thing, okay? So organisations have had vendor X in their organisation providing laptops, providing desktops for so many years. They trust them, they work, they have a great relationship, it's a well-known brand. There's that whole element of trust. They know it, they know the models, they know the spec, it's part of the hardware convention, so why would they feel the need to move? Other people reply that they do have that trust, but it's spread across multiple vendors. Again, your big boys like, your Dells, your Lenovo's, your HP's, etc., your Apples, your Samsungs, your Googles, your Microsofts. They have that trust across that spectrum, and they will only typically look at hardware from those vendors. They won't typically look elsewhere at somewhere else because they trust the big brand vendors to provide them with the hardware that they need that's going to meet their users' requirements. Along with the trust, the other response was all about the reliability. A lot of organisations have had to stretch out the life cycle of their assets, mainly looking at laptops, phones, desktops, monitors and tablets, to stretch them out to even extra years. Maybe that might be 1 or 2 additional more years. Now, the people that replied, they firmly believe that the reliability and the capabilities of these hardware vendors and hardware models to extend the life on a whim, it may be a directive from your senior management or budget constraints that you have to eke it out for another 1 or 2 years. They believe that those devices can handle the extra lifespan, even if you get less money back at the end of the life, even if it's out of warranty. They believe that the big brands, those trusted models, can cope with that extended life cycle. Really interesting point, and a really valid one as I think about it, because I don't know too many organisations that do have non-big brand hardware out there that have extended the life cycle by 1 or 2 years and that there haven't been any issues or problems. Another point as to why organisations keep with the same vendors is all about the global support or regional support and the level of support that they can provide. This isn't just on a technical side of thing, this may also be on a procurement side of thing, a budgeting standpoint, or even just a general having that account director relationship, having that management structure in place. The large organisations have huge accounts teams, customer success teams, technical teams, anyone that you can think of that will be able to help you if you have any problem with the hardware. Do the smaller hardware providers have that? Maybe not quite in the same level of quantities, and large organisations want that personal touch. They want to be able to pick up the phone or call someone on Teams or email them and get a response pretty quickly from someone that knows their estate, knows the configuration of the hardware that they have and knows the models as well. So that was another really interesting point and some feedback that I had from people from larger organisations. An expansion on the support, I guess you could say, is also the warranties that's provided, or the additional support that you can purchase for the hardware from these vendors. I'm talking about things like premium support, premier support, Apple Care, that kind of thing, that is really tailored around corporate organisations buying in large quantities and buying maybe a small range of different models in there. Large organisations can provide you a lot of support in able to manage this. They provide you with on-site support as well if it's within warranty, or these additional maintenance contracts. And there's just a bit of a question mark around whether the smaller vendors can provide that same level of service, that same level of warranty or additional support that you can buy with the bigger ones. Again, understandable, you're used to using all these high-end brands, but we'll go into why you should look at other ones later on. Other feedback. Now, this is an interesting one because it shows the ease of use, but also shows how busy ITAM and procurement professionals are at the moment. And a couple of people mentioned this, and one person before they put it actually did put, I know this is me being lazy. No, it's not you being lazy at all. But one of the reasons why we stick to the big vendors is because of the procurement and the existing contracts that we have in place. We find that our procurement teams, and me personally as an ITAM professional, not me, but the person that messaged me, we find that they have much more intuitive, better portals, faster ways that I can get quotes and place orders, and it's just generally easier and less time consuming for me to manage. We already have negotiated rates already that legal and procurement and stuff has agreed to. I have portals, and it just seems to be a much easier and smoother process with these big vendors. They do go on to say, we have tried smaller vendors, or what you define as a smaller vendor, for things like mobile phones and tablets, and the whole procurement process has not been as easy. So large organisations have portals that you can go into. You've got your defined hardware models and specs and standards in there. Smaller vendors may not have that. It takes up more time to go and get quotes, to make sure you've got the right model, the right spec, it's going to the right place, etc. Whereas, yeah, these procurements, I must admit, they make things a lot easier, a lot quicker. Procurement are a lot happier, and you typically have all of those terms and conditions and stuff already pre-agreed. So it makes your life a lot easier. Get that one. Really do understand that one. I think it's a really good point. Something that I didn't necessarily think about when I was thinking about the badge snobbery. I was thinking more of the technical elements of it, the visual aesthetics on how the bigger brands look, but actually some of the smaller, less known in the corporate world brands also look really good now as well. And the specification and how they operate and how they work are very comparable. All you have to do is go on YouTube and look for phones, tablets, laptops, etc. And you can see the side-by-side comparison. And a lot of these smaller, less corporate vendors are doing really well in those benchmark testings against your iPhones, your iPads, your Lenovo's, your Dell's, your HP's, your Google's, your Samsung's, your Microsoft's, etc. So it is really definitely worth having a look, but I totally get the procurement element of this. If you're a busy ITAM team, portals make things so much easier. Something else that we've had as well come in, which again, something we referenced at the beginning of the video, is that organisations simply won't work with certain vendors from certain regions and territories. That was some of the feedback. We've already covered that one, but again, that really does put your, tie your hands up. You can't really do anything if your organisation physically won't let you order anything other than the predefined hardware that you've already got. The other feedback that we had was about how easy some of these bigger vendors, their hardware they provide is to manage. It's more compatible with operating system updates. They find it easier to image, control, deploy software, give access rights to. Their engineers know how to use them, all of that kind of stuff. So they don't want to go through and then retrain them, get another hardware vendor in that isn't one of the big boys. Obviously, training costs time, it costs money, it's resources. It might be a completely different layout to what they're expecting from a hardware standpoint. Buttons are in different places. You've then got to educate your end users if you're implementing them, and there's hypercare, and it's a whole project and becomes a whole thing. I get that knowing what you know is simple, easy, comfortable, and why upset the apple cart if it's working well for you? Agreed, totally agreed. If a hardware vendor is working for you, the models are working fine, completely agree. I would suggest you do a hardware RFP every few years, every 3 years, every 4 years, whatever your hardware life cycle is, just so that you can go out to the market, see what else is out there, compare and contrast. Maybe another vendor has come on in a long way and does provide a similar model that you've currently got in a similar spec, but they didn't have that 4 or 5 years ago. So now you can compare them, see how that would fit into your organisation, arrange costings, see if you can save any money, but still provide the same level of equipment as you were before. Highly recommend doing that. The other one, some feedback was about risk aversion. So it's mainly around how that person or that team or that stakeholder would be perceived within the organization if they, for example, took out Dell's and replaced it with Asus, or they replaced it with MSI, or they took out iPhones and replaced them with OnePlus or something like that, or Huawei, or another lesser known brand. Is what the perception would be internally if it went wrong, and if people then were having their hardware refresh and giving back an iPhone and not receiving an iPhone or equivalent back. That was some of the feedback that we received. And again, I get it. It goes back to the whole badge snobbery thing, whereas if a user is used to having a beautiful iPhone, the latest version, a Pro, whatever it is, Pro Max, and then they get the equivalent Huawei, which they're not familiar with, it's a completely different operating system, completely different look of the phone, feel of the phone. Definitely think this is more of an issue in the handheld space with phones and tablets. With laptops, I think as long as a laptop works, it works. As long as it does the job, I don't think too many people are that bothered about it, apart from Apple Mac users, obviously. I don't think people are too bothered about what the brand is on the shell. They all look pretty similar as I look at my laptops now. Got a MacBook, I've got a Lenovo, I've got an MSI. They all look very similar now if you go with the same kind of colour scheme. It's not going to make much difference from a laptop or a monitor standpoint, but yeah, totally get it from a handheld and a mobile standpoint. And another one really does just really confirm the badge snobbery theory of they just want to be seen to be providing the best hardware. And in their opinion, the best hardware is a Dell, a HP, a Lenovo, an Apple, a Samsung, a Google, etc. And some feedback as well we had is they want that perception when they're going into meetings with third-party stakeholders. If they're on a sales team, totally get that. If they're a social media team, totally get that. But they want that perception that, yeah, our company is buying the best hardware that they can to give to their users. Whether they need the full spec or not, they are buying a well-known brand, a well-known model, the top kind of branding band that you can have, and they want that perception, they want that visuals, they're putting their asset tag on it so that you know that that company is buying a really high level version of equipment. Had that feedback from people that are well-known brands that are in like the public eye, whether that's in fashion or retail or even like hedge fund companies and stuff like that. I had an ITAM person from a hedge fund company saying that they wanted to be perceived as providing top of the range Apple devices. So they had MacBooks, they had iPads, and they had iPhones, the top of the range ones, even if it wasn't needed because it was a perception thing. It's also almost enticing people to come and work for you. If you know that when you join you're going to get a brand new MacBook, the latest iPhone, the latest iPad or whatever, that may entice the next generation of professionals to come in and work for you. Whereas if you gave them a brand that they weren't familiar with, they haven't grown up with, it's maybe got a bit of a reputation when they were at college or at school as not being expensive or high-end or whatever, then that might deter them if they know that they're not working on equipment they're familiar with, a brand, a badge they're not familiar with. You see where this is going. It does go back to that whole badge snobbery concept. In summary, I think that it is definitely a valid point. There are valid reasons for having the badge snobbery at the same time, though. Because of the perceived extended life cycle, the compatibility, the reputation that the organisation wants to have for having that particular brand, a well-known brand of equipment. It's also got the longevity of the life cycle, the additional support. There's a lot of reasons as to why there are valid badge snobbery reasons. So other things was, of course, trust, procurement simplicity, standardisation, general perception, risk, compatibility, all of that good stuff. So there are reasons for it, but then at the same time, to play devil's advocate, there are a lot of really good brands that provide some really good hardware now. I've got a OnePlus tablet. I love it. I think it's actually better than an iPad. There are some really good phone brands out there that when you do Google and look at benchmark testing against a Google, against a Samsung, against an iPhone, they come up sometimes even better and comparable, and they're $100 or pounds or euros cheaper than the other ones. So are we actually missing out on some really cool equipment that's cheaper, that could reduce your hardware spend in your budgets simply because of the brand? I would love to know your thoughts if this is the case, whether you agree that you should stick to those high-end brands because that's what's known, they can support corporate and enterprise organisations better, or are you on the side of, well, maybe we should be opening our minds a bit more. Maybe one step at a time we're going to get different mobile devices that aren't quite, one of the premium brands, but has amazing hardware, has amazing tin that they can provide you, but is cheaper and not as well known. And then look at maybe laptops, desktops, monitors, etc. But yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts. Is there brand snobbery in place? Are we as ITAM professionals missing out on some really cool tech and some big discounts because of said brand snobbery? And do you think this would ever change in the future, or do you think corporate organisations are kind of set in their ways? They know what they like, they know what they can trust. Let me know in the comments, let me know on my emails, let me know on LinkedIn. I'd love to know your thoughts. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more ITAM content. We've got big interviews and webinars coming up in November, and I'd hate for you to miss out on those, so make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, until next time, we will see you here next Wednesday, back at the Sam Beast YouTube channel. Until then, happy ITAMing. And go look at some other hardware vendors that may not be one that you're used to. You might surprise yourself.